So you want your base looking like this, or this, but you don't know how to go about this. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to get a flawless base like this in a few steps. Now, you need to know that the first thing you need to do before you go into anything skin work is get your skin prep right. What I like to do is I like to do like a 3-step skincare routine. You literally do not need much to prep your skin for makeup. All that serums and all of that, most of the time, is very unnecessary. All you need is a 3-step skin prep routine, which is tone, moisturize, and prime. That is literally all you need. Now, I'm gonna start with toning. And what does a toner do for your makeup? This will primarily bring back the moisture to your skin, especially after you have cleansed your face and washed your face. It generally will help bring back that moisture and restore the pH balance to your skin that was stripped off by your cleanser. So that's why it's usually the first step in skin prep before you go on with any product. Next, we're gonna go with a moisturizer. I want to apply this all over your face to give your skin that plump and to moisturize your skin. Now, another way to moisturize / protect your skin is also applying sunscreen. So these act as a protectant. It protects your skin as well as a moisturizer to give that added luminosity to my base, which makes it easy for makeup to glide on when I want to apply. So you want to apply this all over the face as well. Then the last step for our skin prep will be our primer. Now, this is a hydrating primer. It is advised that you only use this if you have a combination or a dry skin, but if you have an oily skin, you can use a mattifying primer. I'm going to apply this on my T-zone here. You want to target the areas where you get oily the most and then apply your primer to those areas. What it does is it mattifies those areas and reduces the excess shine in those areas while giving you a smooth base for makeup application. Now, once you're done with all your skin prep, you want to let that dry down. This is very important because it will help when you apply your foundation. So if you notice that your foundation gets patchy or it breaks when you apply it, or it has that uneven look when you apply it, is majorly because you're applying products right after you apply your skin prep. So you want to let your skin prep dry down and absorb into your skin before you go into the next step, because once it dries down and you go on to the next step, it catches on to your foundation more and it gives it that clean, smooth base. So the products that you applied before will not mix up with the foundation and give it that patchy look. I'm going to be going into foundation. This is a NARS foundation in Tahoe. You could either go in with a dense brush that looks just like this or a beauty sponge. If you're a beginner, I would advise to go in with a beauty sponge because this is easier to work with. But I'm going to be going in with a brush. You can also go in with a brush and then your beauty sponge after for a smoother application. And the difference in the application between a brush and a beauty sponge is the brush gives more fuller coverage. It does not soak in all the products, whilst the beauty blender gives a more natural finish because the beauty blender soaks up more product when you apply. So depending on the finish you want, you can go for anyone. Now, you don't want to go in directly with your brush. You want to use a flat brush like this to apply to your skin so it will be easier to blend. For foundation application, you want to take it step by step instead of applying foundation all over your face and then blend it. Apply on one side, blend out before you go on to the other side. I'm just going to tap on to the product a bit just so it marries the brush before I blend it out. So just going to blend this in a tapping motion. You can notice I'm starting from the lower part of my face because this is usually the part that needs more coverage than the other areas, because we're still going to go in with our concealers and our bronzer and every other thing on those other areas. So on these areas where I'm focusing on, I'm not going to apply any of that. That's why I'm starting from the lower part of my face and then moving it upward. When I'm blending this side, we'll then go on to the other side. Just going to blend this as well. You want to go in tapping motion. You're not dragging, you're not rubbing, you're just tapping it in like it. And you also want to make sure not to over blend. Just give it the right amount of blending. When you're blending, you want to make sure you get into all those tiny corners like your nose area, hair, here. Make sure the foundation gets into those areas. Now for your forehead, I'm majorly going to be going in with the remnant of the brush and just tapping it in because your forehead does not require that much product in general. So we're not going to be applying much to the forehead at all. I'm just going in with the remnants, tapping it in. And that's basically it for forehead. Don't forget to also bring it into your neck. so it rhymes together. Moving into concealers, you're going to be needing 1 or 2 concealers depending on your preference or how bright you want your under eye to be. If you want a smooth clean under eye, you want to start with using a deeper concealer that is closer to your skin tone, 1 or 2 shades lighter, and then you can layer it on with a brighter one. So depending on how bright you want your under eye to be, the lighter you can go with your concealer. So I'm starting with the darker concealer. I want to focus it on 2 areas, the inner and the outer corner of your eyes. So we're going to be applying it on the inner here. You don't need to apply so much concealer before you know you've applied concealer. You just need to apply it on the inner and here on the outer corner of your eye. This is all you need. And I'm going to highlight the T-zone as well. I'm going to go into my nose, my cupids, my chin. Then I'll go to my forehead. Of my forehead, I don't like to go in with this spatula because sometimes it leaves a mark on my forehead. So I'll just apply it to my hands here. And I'll use a brush or a sponge, whichever one you prefer. Just tap on it and I'll just apply it right in the middle. So if you want more coverage from your concealer, you leave your concealer to dry a bit before you go in to blend it. While I letting it get tacky, we'll blend out the T-zone because I don't need so much coverage on my T-zone. This is where I need the coverage, so I'm just going to let this area get tacky a bit while I blend out this area. I'm still going to go over this with a sponge for a smoother blend. Now I'm going to go in with a beauty sponge, tap on the product. You want to make sure you tap on the product before you blend it out, because if you go in with an empty sponge to blend out, it will take away what you just applied rather than blending it out. So you want to marry your beauty sponge to the product you want to blend out before you go ahead to blend it out. So I'm just going to smoothen what I just did out in tapping motion, and I'm not blending it out too much because if you go in to blend it too much, you end up taking away the product you applied. So once you see it's smooth, you just let it be. I'm not gonna right here, blend here as well, blend here as well. Yeah, that's literally it. I'm going into contouring and bronzing. I like to do something called layering and I want to contour and bronze. So layering basically is a technique that is done to give your makeup depth and dimension by adding various shades of the same color to give your makeup that gradient look. People usually do it a lot with their eyeshadows, but I don't know why it's not common with your skin work. So I like to do it a lot with my contouring and my blush. For that, I like to either use a darker bronzer paired with a lighter bronzer to form ingredients, or ideally we're supposed to use contour because contour is what will bring it out even more. So for this video, I'm going to be using my contour and pairing it with bronzing. Contour basically adds shadows and structure to your face and is usually cool tone, while a bronzer is usually more warm tone and gives you that sun-kissed fresh look. So I'm going to be pairing them together to layer. Now I'm going to show you guys the difference between the two. See what it looks like. It kind of gives this muddy look. This is a bronzer, much more warmer look, which goes very well with your natural skin tone. So you can see the difference in the undertone. To layer that, I'm going to use a flat brush like this and just give my face just that structure look. So I'm applying this contour from this area to this area. I apply some of this to my temple because I like this area lifted. It's big, so I'm going to apply it to give you a lift, and I'm going to use that to contour my lips. This is optional. You can only do this if you want like a fuller lip or you want to overline your lip when you apply your lip liner. So basically you use your contour in the areas where you want more defined and want to have structure, which is usually my cheekbone and my temple. I'm going with the A58 brush from the Morphe set. You can also go with your blender. I'm gonna dip it into this bronzer here. I use this to blend out the darker shade I just applied here. So this is what layering is. It's basically using different shades to give your skin work more dimension. So I used a darker shade to kind of outline and give my face more structure, and then I used a lighter shade to kind of blend that into my skin. So when you blend this all together, it will give that gradient look and it will give your skin work more dimension. Now I'll just blend. So I'm kind of using that to also blend out this dark shade I applied. So you can see that gradient it gave it. It went from darker into the lighter shade. Now I use the remnant here and then apply. I like to just bronze this area instead of contour. So I'll just apply here Then I also like to bronze my forehead area. I want to give that area a sun-kissed glow and give it a little bit of warmth. I don't need this area to be harsh, so I'm just going into bronze to give it warmth. Apply some here. I'm going back in with the flat brush into my bronzer to just contour my nose. I'm just going to drag it from my eyebrow straight down. Once this is done, the under eye should be tacky already. We'll go ahead and blend it. Tap into some of that product, the concealer. And then you want to blend it from the edges so it doesn't lose its direction. Because if you go directly into your blender and just blend it out, it might lose its direction when you're blending it out. So you want to maintain the concealer where you applied. That's why I'm going from the edges and then inward. So we'll just do this from the edges here, and the outer edges as well. Here and then inward. I forgot to blend this area, so I'm just going in to blend the contour into your hairline. So because of the lace, I don't want to blend it into my hairline, but usually you blend this into your hairline so it gives that natural look. This is what you should be having once that is blended out. I'm going to go into my nose and blend out this bronzer. I'm just going in with the same bronzer sponge. I'm just pressing this together. You can use your beauty blender for that. Just tap on to the side and blend it into your brows. So I'm just doing this. Just tapping it. I'm not dragging, I'm just tapping the product in. You can decide to leave it at one layer of concealer, but if you want a brighter under eye and if you want a full glam, you can go ahead and layer it with a lighter concealer. So I'm going in with the lighter concealer. I'm going to apply this only on this inner corner. Just maintain it at this corner here. I'm going to go in with my blush. You can also do your layering with blush as well. So we're going to go in the same manner that we layered our contour to layer our blush. I'm going to use the same A58 brush but flipped over. I'm just going to tap some into this product. And then you maintain it right above your contour, just right above it here. Just tapping motion. You're not dragging, you're not rubbing, you're tapping in. Tap the product in. Like this. I'm going to take the remnant and just apply some here. Now to layer it to give it more dimension, I'm going to go in with a lighter shade of orange. So this is a deeper shade and I'm going in with a lighter shade. I'm just going to go slightly above it to diffuse this line and kind of blend it into my concealer so it does not just stand out on its own. Once your blush is done, you want to go back into your concealer and then blend it out. So I'm going to also blend this from the edges first. And then we'll focus the blending more to this inner corner because this is the area we want very brightened. And then the remnant on the sponge, we'll then spread it out and take it outward like this. And so it will blend in with your blush, but it's going to give that faded blend. It's not going to cover the whole blush. Now this is what you should be giving once you're done. You can see that there's a gradient going on here. So for this line here, we're going to go in with your bronzer part of your sponge. You're not taking a fresh bronzer, just the remnants there, and just tap on that line. So it will kind of diffuse that area out, so it won't give you that harsh line on your face. Then for this line here, we're also going with the bronzer part and just tap on it a bit. I brought in my highlighter a bit into my nose. So if you do that, that gives your nose a much more slimmer look. In case you want to have a slimmer look, this is a key tip for you. Now to diffuse this harsh line here, I'm going to go in with my foundation sponge or brush and just tap on the line, just a bit lightly. Just the remnant on the brush. You're not going in with the fresh foundation. I'm just going to diffuse that line just to give it a more natural look. Now once your base is well blended out and smooth, we're then going to go in with setting. So I'm going to be starting off setting my highlighted areas using a setting powder. So for setting powders, you want to use a powder that is close to your skin tone to set first. But if you don't have a powder that is close to your skin tone, you can also use a translucent powder. A translucent powder is basically a transparent powder that goes on any skin tone. It's like a no color powder, so once you apply it, it doesn't show your skin tone. So you can go ahead and apply a translucent powder or a powder that's close to your skin tone. And before you set any highlighted areas, you want to go in and blend out the areas where you have harsh lines, especially your under eye. So you want to just go back in there, blend so it's smooth for your powder application, because if you don't blend it, whatever you set is what you get. So you want to make sure it's blended well so that when you set a smooth base, you get a smooth base. Now that this is blended out, immediately go in with your powder, and don't just apply it like this. Dust off the excess and make it smooth on the sponge like this before you then set. So you want to tap in to the wet areas so it's mattified. Setting is basically mattifying those areas that are wet, basically mattifying your creams. So you want to make sure you press it into those areas to set it properly so that it's mattified. So you all make sure you press it into here as well, because people tend to forget these areas when setting. So all the areas where I highlighted my T-zone and my under eye are the areas where I'm setting. And I'm also using the sponge I used to apply my concealer. I like to use a damp sponge to set because it gives a more natural finish. But you can also use a powder puff like this. But I don't like to use powder puff because it gives more matte finish than a natural finish. The damp beauty sponge gives a more natural finish. But if you're going for a matte finish, you can use a powder puff any way you prefer. But I prefer to use a damp sponge because it gives more natural. I want to also make sure you get into these areas because they usually have concealer piled up there and they don't set in one go. So I'm going to go in with another layer and really get into that area where the concealer is, just so it's completely mattified. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure you're getting into those areas to mattify them like this. You can see that wetness has gone. Now I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and bake. Baking basically is brightening and making your face more pronounced. So the areas where you want to be more pronounced and you want brighter or brightened, you go into bake. For baking, we're going to apply a larger chunk of powder to the areas where we want to be brightened. I'm going to go in with the same powder. So you can use the same powder to bake, but just in a larger amount. So I'm taking the same powder, but in a larger chunk, but I'm still going to dust off some and make it smooth before I go into bake. So I'm going to majorly focus my baking to this area, to the inner corner, and just take the remnant outward like this. So basically you're going to bake the areas where you want to be more brighter, which is usually my under eye and the bridge of my nose. We're going to bake my nose. I'll just take the remnants and just kind of do this here, just give that structure to my cheekbone. I don't like to use a lot of powder here. I like to use what is left on the sponge, just so it adds that structure to my face. I'm going to set the cream bronzer as well. We're also going to set in the same manner that we applied the cream bronzer, that is going from the darker shade to the lighter shade. So I'm going to be using this dark shade first. With a fan brush, I'll just tap it lightly into the shade. So what I'm basically doing is I'm also layering with powder. So I'll just tap it at the same spot I applied the contour, just slightly. We don't need much for this one. Just want to give it that definition. So I'm going to basically swipe the darker color to the areas where we actually contoured. I'm going with the A3.2 brush into the lighter shade. And what you want to do is just tap it in. Just focus on the area. Don't go past that area you applied your cream bronzer. Focus it on the area you applied your cream bronzer, just like this. I'm going to take the remnant and also the same way I applied it, I apply here as well. The same bronzer applied to my forehead. In tapping motion, we're not rubbing, we're not dragging, we're just tapping the product in. So we basically just did it in the same manner we applied our cream bronzer and contour. I'm going in with an eyeshadow blending brush. We'll tap into the lighter bronzer as well. Now we're just gonna lightly apply here into your crease and into your brows, so it gives that natural look. For blush, we're also going to go in the same manner. I'm going to improvise using my eyeshadow here to give you that same gradient look. I'm just going to tap in lightly at the edge. Just tap it in, then drag the remnants inward. So I majorly focused it on this outer corner because this is the area where I want to be very lifted and I want the blush very pronounced here. And the remnant on the brush, I'll just drag it inward like this. This is what you should be giving you when you're done. I'm going to take the remnant and just apply it to my nose as well. So I'm going to take the remnant as well and take it up into my temple, just so everything is cohesive. So now I'll set according to how we applied the cream. I'm going to go in with pressed powder. I'm the A2.1 brush from Morphe. So for powder, we're going to focus it on the areas where we did not apply any powder product at all. You know, we already applied our powder bronzer here and our blush here and our setting powder on the highlighted areas. So for the areas where we didn't apply any powder, those are the areas we focus on, which is here. So I'm going to apply majority of the pressed powder here because this area doesn't have any powder at all. And then I'll take what is left on this brush and just go over the bronzer and the blush so it doesn't completely cover up the bronzer and blush. I'll apply here, and then for here I'll just tap onto the middle first and then take the remnant to the side where the bronzer is so it does not completely cover the bronzer as well. Then I just apply to my nose to swipe that out. Then I also apply to my neck. Now to dust off the excess powder on the under eye, we're going to go in with a brush looking like this. And then I like to go in with a brightening powder because I like a bright under eye. So instead of dusting this out, just tap into our brightening powder and then press it in, starting from the inner corner. So we're going to focus the brightness, just as we did the concealer. Focus the brightness on this inner corner and then take out the remnants on the brush upward, just like this. So most of the brightness is here, so your face looks more structured and lifted. I'm going to go in to set the entire face. Once that is dried down, we'll go back in with our damp sponge. So apply your highlighter. I'm going to go in with this part of the sponge, tap it into the product, dust it off a bit on the hand so it's not so much on the face. And then apply to the high point here of your cheek, where the light naturally hits you. So you can see that subtle glow. That's what this highlighter does. I'll apply here to my brow bone as well. I'm just applying on the areas where light naturally hits me. And then here as well, this area, so it has this cohesive look. So I applied it like a C. I'm gonna go ahead and apply just on this point, pinch the sponge and apply here only. I only apply to this part and this part. If you look closely, you can see that there's like a demarcation between where I applied the highlight and my under eye powder. Now to give it a smoother finish, just tapping the brush into the remnant of my setting powder and I'll just kind of sweep that upward just so it removes that demarcation between the highlight I just applied and my under eye powder, so it doesn't look like there's something I applied there. So this is what I just did. So it still has that inner glow where you're just not seeing where it's coming from. Unlike here, you can see that there's like a demarcation. So what this does is it just removes that harsh line. Gives it a more softer appearance. For this area, I'm just going with my bronzing brush that I used to apply my bronzer to my nose and just kind of put this together so it's focused right to the middle. Then once you're done with that, we're going to remove every harsh line here. So you can see that there's a harsh line demarcation between the bronzer applied and my highlighter. You want to take that off. Going to our pressed powder, you want to use a powder that is your skin tone and just tap it in with the brush and just go right to the middle and blend it into the bronzer. So it just goes into it just disappears into each other like this. Consider that harsh line is no longer there. And once you're done, you should be having a flawless smooth base just like this. If you learned anything on this video, please drop a comment in my video. I really want to hear from you guys what you want me to do. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.